Ambassador Kate Morrison stood in the center of the massive chamber, her hands gripping the speech she had prepared for this moment. Around her, hundreds of alien beings filled the curved seats that rose like steps toward the domed ceiling. The air hummed with electronic translators working to convert dozens of different languages into something everyone could understand. She had waited 3 years for this day. 3 long years of meetings, negotiations, and careful diplomacy. 3 years of following every rule, attending every ceremony, and proving that humans deserved their place among the stars. Now finally, Earth would join the Galactic Council. The Zephyrian High Speaker floated in the center of the chamber, his crystal body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. When he spoke, his voice came out as musical, notes that the translators turned into words. The Council has reviewed the application from the species known as human, the High Speaker announced. His voice echoed in the vast space. After careful consideration of all evidence and testimony, we have reached our decision. Kate felt her heart beat faster. This was it. This was the moment that would change everything for humanity. Earth would finally have a voice in galactic affairs. Her people would no longer be treated as newcomers or children who needed guidance from older, wiser species. The application is denied. The words hit Kate like a physical blow. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Around the chamber, alien delegates shifted in their seats. Some looked satisfied. Others seemed bored, as if they had expected this result all along. Furthermore, the High Speaker continued, this marks the 7th consecutive rejection of the human application for Council membership. The species will not be permitted to reapply for another standard galactic year. Kate's carefully prepared acceptance speech felt heavy in her hands. She had written it 3 times, practicing in front of mirrors and recording devices until every word was perfect. She had imagined this moment so many times, picturing herself speaking to the Council as an equal, representing all of humanity with pride and dignity. Instead, she stood alone in the center of hostile stares and indifferent glances. The Altarian delegate rose from his seat, his forearms gesturing as he spoke. The human species remains too young, too unstable for Council membership. They have existed in space for barely 2 centuries. Their planet still shows signs of environmental damage from their industrial period. They wage wars among themselves even as they seek to join peaceful civilizations. Other delegates nodded in agreement. The representative from the Kepler Commonwealth added her voice to the criticism. Humans reproduce too quickly and expand too aggressively. They consume resources at rates that concern established species. Their technology develops faster than their wisdom. Kate wanted to respond, to defend her species against these charges. She wanted to point out that humans had ended major wars decades ago, that Earth's environment was healing, that human technology had already benefited dozens of worlds. But protocol demanded silence during the formal announcement. The Draconian Senator, a reptilian being whose scales gleamed under the chamber lights, delivered what felt like the final insult. Perhaps in another century or 2, when humans have matured beyond their current primitive state, they might be reconsidered. For now, they remain unfit for civilized governance. Primitive. The word stung more than all the others combined. Kate had seen human engineers solve problems that had puzzled alien scientists for generations. She had watched human doctors save lives across species lines using techniques no one else had discovered. She had witnessed human artists create works that moved beings to tears regardless of their biology. Yet here, in this chamber of supposed galactic wisdom, humans were dismissed as barely evolved animals. The High Speaker's voice cut through her thoughts. Ambassador Morrison, do you wish to make a statement on behalf of your species? Kate looked around the chamber one more time. She saw the smug satisfaction on some faces, the complete indifference on others. These beings had made their decision before she ever entered the room. Nothing she said would change their minds. The human delegation thanks the Council for its consideration, she said, her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest. We will review the decision and determine our next course of action." She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. No one spoke as she left. No one offered sympathy or suggested ways to improve humanity's chances next time. They simply watched her go, already forgetting about the humans they had just rejected. The corridors of Nexus Prime stretched before her like a maze of polished metal and glowing lights. Kate had walked these halls hundreds of times, but today, they felt different. Today she noticed how every decoration, every architectural choice, every small detail reflected the tastes and preferences of species that were not human. She passed the memorial wall without stopping, but something made her turn back. The holographic display showed the names and images of 47 different species, 47 civilizations that had vanished from the galaxy, while the Council debated and delayed and argued about proper procedures. Kate studied the display more carefully than she ever had before. Some of these species had been destroyed by natural disasters that could have been prevented with quick action. Others had fallen to diseases that existing medical knowledge could have cured. Still, others had simply faded away. Their requests, for help lost in bureaucratic procedures and political considerations. The Council that had just rejected humanity had failed to save 47 entire civilizations. Yet they claimed humans were too immature, too dangerous, too unpredictable to be trusted with galactic responsibilities. Kate pulled out her personal communicator and began composing a message to Earth. Her fingers moved quickly across the small screen as ideas formed in her mind. The Council had made their position clear. They saw humans as children who needed to wait patiently for permission to join adult society. But what if humans stopped asking for permission? Her message was brief and encrypted, but it carried a weight that surprised even her. Council rejection confirmed, reason given, species immaturity and unpredictability. Request immediate consultation on alternative approaches. Time to consider. Plan B. She sent the message and put the communicator away. Around her, aliens from dozens of worlds went about their daily business, secure in their belief that the galaxy's affairs were safely managed by wise and experienced species. None of them noticed the human ambassador walking among them with new purpose in her step and dangerous thoughts in her mind. None of them realized that their rejection of humanity might have been the biggest mistake the Galactic Council had ever made. Kate Morrison had come to Nexus Prime as a supplicant, hoping to earn humanity's place through patience and proper procedure. She would leave as something entirely different. She would leave as the architect of a plan that would change everything. 6 months after Kate Morrison's humiliating rejection, a small transport ship docked at Nexus Prime. The vessel looked ordinary compared to the grand diplomatic cruisers that usually carried ambassadors and high officials. Its hull was plain, gray metal without decorative markings or ceremonial designs. Commander Alex Chen stepped off the ship, wearing a simple black suit that looked almost primitive next to the elaborate robes and ornate uniforms worn by other species representatives. He carried no ceremonial weapons, no technological displays, no entourage of advisors and guards. His only possession was a single briefcase that he held casually in his left hand. The docking bay guards barely glanced at him. Another human, they probably thought. Another minor official coming to beg for scraps from the council table. Alex walked through the station corridors with confident steps, following signs toward the main council chambers. Aliens of every shape and size moved around him, conducting their daily business with the casual arrogance of beings who belonged in this place. None of them paid attention to the lone human making his way through their domain. When Alex reached the council reception area, he approached the main desk where a 6-armed Centaurian clerk processed visitor requests. The alien looked up from his paperwork with barely concealed annoyance. "Purpose of visit?" the clerk asked in mechanical tones. "I need to address the council," Alex replied calmly. The clerk's multiple eyes blinked in what might have been amusement. "The council does not hear random petitions from non-member species. If you wish to file a formal complaint or request, you must follow proper procedures through your species' diplomatic channels." "I'm not here on behalf of humanity as a species," Alex said. I represent the Terran Independent Trade Consortium. We need to discuss business arrangements with council members. The clerk paused, his fingers hovering over his datapad. Trade Consortium? There is no record of such an organization in our diplomatic files. Alex opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder of documents. The consortium was formed 4 months ago under galactic commercial law. All paperwork has been filed with the appropriate regulatory bodies. We control exclusive rights to all human commercial activities in space. The clerk took the documents and began scanning them with one of his optical devices. His expression changed from boredom to confusion to something approaching alarm as he read. "This is highly irregular," the clerk muttered. "Species do not typically reorganize their entire economic structure into private commercial entities. The consortium found it necessary due to changing market conditions," Alex replied, smoothly. "We're simply adapting to reality." Within an hour, Alex found himself standing in the same chamber where Kate Morrison had been rejected 6 months earlier. The alien delegates looked at him with curiosity and suspicion, unsure what to make of this unexpected visitor. The Zephyrian. High Speaker's crystal form shimmered as he addressed the chamber. The being known as Alex Chen claims to represent a human commercial organization. This is not a matter for council consideration. Alex stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly in the vast space. "With respect, High Speaker, the Terran Independent Trade Consortium is prepared to offer exclusive trading agreements to council member species. However, we need to establish terms and conditions for such partnerships." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The Altarian representative leaned forward, his 4 eyes focusing intently on Alex. "This is merely a political trick. Humans seek to circumvent our authority through commercial manipulation." "Not at all," Alex replied. "The Council has made it clear that humanity is not ready for political participation in galactic affairs. We accept that judgment completely. The consortium exists purely for commercial purposes." He opened his briefcase again and produced a datapad containing economic information. "In the 6 months since humanity's last application was rejected, we have restructured our entire space-based economy. Every human colony, mining operation, manufacturing facility, and research station now operates under consortium control." The datapad was passed among the delegates, and Alex watched their expressions change as they absorbed the information. The numbers were staggering. Human expansion had accelerated dramatically in recent years, making Earth's children the galaxy's largest suppliers of rare minerals, advanced electronics, and agricultural products. The representative from the Kepler Commonwealth, a tall being whose purple skin seemed to shift colors as she spoke, raised her voice above the growing murmur of conversation. "These figures cannot be accurate. No single species could control such a large percentage of galactic resource production. The consortium's holdings are fully documented and verified," Alex responded. "Human colonies now operate in 47 star systems. Our mining operations extract materials from over 200 asteroid fields. Our manufacturing facilities produce components used by 63 different species." He pulled out another datapad with even more detailed information. "Our agricultural techniques have revolutionized food production on 32 worlds. Human-developed medical technology is currently saving lives in hospitals across the galaxy. Our transportation systems move cargo for 80% of all interstellar trade routes." The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. While the Council had been dismissing humanity as too primitive for political membership, humans had quietly become the backbone of galactic commerce. The draconian senator who had called humans primitive 6 months earlier now looked distinctly uncomfortable. Even if these claims are true, commercial activity does not grant political authority. "The consortium has no interest in political authority," Alex replied. "We simply want to conduct business efficiently. However, the current system presents certain challenges." He gestured to the assembled delegates. "Under existing regulations, the consortium must negotiate separate agreements with each council member species. This creates unnecessary complexity and expense. We would prefer to establish a single framework agreement with qualified partners." The High Speaker's crystalline form darkened slightly. "You speak of the Council as if it were merely another commercial entity." From the consortium's perspective, that's exactly what you are, Alex said bluntly. You represent the political authority of your respective species. We represent the economic interests of human space operations. Both parties have something the other needs. He pulled out a final document from his briefcase. The consortium is prepared to offer preferential trading rates to council member species. However, these agreements would require long-term commitments and mutual guarantees. We would need to work with stable, reliable partners. The chamber erupted in angry voices as delegates realized the implications of Alex's proposal. He was offering them exactly what they wanted, favorable access to human goods and services, but on terms that treated the mighty Galactic Council as nothing more than potential customers. The Altarian delegate's voice rose above the others. This is blackmail disguised as commerce. Alex's expression remained perfectly calm. The consortium operates within all established galactic trade laws. We offer fair market prices to our partners and competitive rates to qualified customers. If certain entities find our terms unsatisfactory, they are welcome to seek alternatives. He paused, letting that thought sink in. Every being in the chamber knew there were no alternatives. Human production had become too large, too efficient, too integrated into galactic commerce to simply replace. The consortium board of directors would be happy to discuss partnership agreements with any qualified governmental representatives. Alex continued. We believe mutually beneficial arrangements can be reached with species committed to long-term cooperation. As Alex gathered his documents and prepared to leave, the chamber remained silent. The beings who had rejected humanity as too immature for political participation now faced a choice between swallowing their pride or watching their economy suffer. The lone human walked out of the council chamber the same way he had entered, carrying only his briefcase and his quiet confidence. But everything had changed. The species that had denied humans a seat at their table were about to discover that sometimes the most powerful position is the one where you don't need to ask permission to sit down. The first species to feel the impact were the Kepler Commonwealth worlds. Their factories had run smoothly for decades using rare minerals from human-controlled asteroid mines. The metals were essential for their electronics industry, and the HFY Commonwealth had grown comfortable with reliable deliveries at reasonable prices. That comfort ended abruptly when their existing contracts expired. Commander Jake Peterson, the consortium's operations director, sat across from Commonwealth Trade Minister Vex Andra in a sterile meeting room deep within Nexus Prime. The purple-skinned alien's color had shifted to a worried dark blue as she reviewed the new contract terms. These prices are 3 times what we paid last year, she said, her voice tight with strain. Jake nodded sympathetically. The consortium has restructured its pricing to reflect true market values. For non-partner species, we must charge standard galactic rates. Non-partner species? Vexandra's skin flickered between blue and angry red. The Commonwealth has traded with humans for over 20 years. Under the old system, yes, Jake replied calmly. But the consortium operates differently. We offer significant discounts to species that enter into partnership agreements with us. He slid another document across the table. Partnership rates would actually be lower than what you paid before. However, partnership requires certain commitments and mutual cooperation clauses. Vexandra scanned the partnership agreement, her colors shifting rapidly as she read. This document mentions political cooperation and diplomatic support. We are discussing trade, not politics. The consortium finds that long-term commercial relationships work best when supported by stable political frameworks, Jake explained. Partners tend to resolve disputes more efficiently and honor contracts more reliably. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Alex Chen was having a very different conversation with Admiral Thane of the Voltan Republic. The Voltan's blue-gray skin was marked with the ritual scars of a warrior culture, and his reputation for directness matched his intimidating appearance. My outer colonies are facing food shortages, Thane said bluntly. Your agricultural products could solve our problem quickly. Alex pulled out a data pad showing production figures. The consortium's vertical farms can produce enough food to supply your colonies for the next 5 years. We can have the first shipments ready within 2 weeks. What's the cost? For Voltan Republic worlds, we can offer a 30% discount from standard rates. Alex paused. For consortium partners, the discount increases to 70%. Thane's scarred face showed no emotion, but his eyes sharpened with interest. What does partnership require? Mutual cooperation, favorable trade status, and occasional diplomatic support on matters of common interest, Alex replied. Nothing that would compromise Voltan independence or honor. The Admiral leaned back in his chair, considering. The Republic values straight dealing above all else. If the consortium honors its agreements, we can honor ours. Similar conversations were taking place throughout Nexus Prime as human representatives met with delegates from dozens of species. The pattern was always the same. Reasonable prices for partners, expensive rates for everyone else, and increasingly attractive partnership terms for species willing to commit. Dr. Sarah Kim, the consortium's technology liaison, found herself in high demand as species discovered what human innovation had accomplished during their years of political exclusion. The hegemony of Ceres had been struggling with obsolete defense systems for decades, falling behind in the technological arms race that dominated their region of space. These weapon designs are remarkable, General Crix admitted as he reviewed the technical specifications. His insectoid features made his expressions hard to read, but his excitement was obvious. The energy efficiency alone would revolutionize our fleet capabilities. Sarah smiled politely. Human engineers have always excelled at practical problem solving. We'd be happy to license these technologies to qualified customers. The licensing fees seem reasonable, Crix noted, scrolling through the financial details. Those are standard rates, Sarah clarified. Consortium partners receive full technology transfer agreements instead of simple licensing. They get the complete technical specifications, manufacturing processes, and ongoing development updates. The General's compound eyes focused intently on her. Full technology transfer? That's worth 10 times the licensing cost. Partnership has its advantages, Sarah agreed. Back in the main council chambers, the political impact of these individual negotiations was becoming impossible to ignore. The Zephyrian High Speaker called an emergency session, his crystalline form pulsing with frustrated energy. This economic manipulation violates every principle of galactic cooperation, he announced to the assembled delegates. The humans are using commercial pressure to achieve political goals. Alex attended the session as an observer, sitting quietly in the gallery reserved for non-council members. His presence was a constant reminder of how the situation had changed. Ambassador Kate Morrison, still officially Earth's diplomatic representative, rose to address the chamber. The Terran Independent Trade Consortium operates as a private commercial entity under established galactic law. Their business practices comply with all relevant regulations. The Altarian delegate's forearms gestured angrily. Legal technicalities cannot disguise blatant coercion. They offer benefits to species that support them, and punishment to those that do not. The consortium offers competitive prices to all customers, Kate replied smoothly. Partnership agreements simply reflect the economics of long-term relationships. Committed partners receive better terms because they represent lower business risks. When called upon to respond, Alex stood and addressed the chamber with the same calm confidence he had shown weeks earlier. The consortium regrets that some species find our terms unsuitable. We remain committed to fair dealing and mutual benefit with all qualified partners. He paused, letting his words echo in the vast space. Of course, qualified alternatives for our products and services are somewhat limited in the current market. We encourage species facing supply difficulties to consider partnership options. The chamber erupted in angry voices, but Alex continued speaking as if nothing had happened. The consortium's board of directors has authorized me to announce our latest partnership initiative. We are prepared to establish a comprehensive economic alliance with any group of species interested in long-term cooperation. The Voltan Admiral stood up in his section. The Republic formally requests partnership status with the Terran Independent Trade Consortium. Within minutes, 6 other species had made similar announcements. The carefully controlled unity of the Galactic Council cracked as individual members chose economic survival over political solidarity. The High Speaker watched his authority crumble in real time as council members abandoned collective decision-making for individual negotiations with the humans they had dismissed as primitive just months earlier. Alex gathered his papers and prepared to leave, but the High Speaker's voice stopped him. "Do you realize what you have accomplished, Commander Chen?" Alex turned back to face the crystalline being. "We've found a way to be useful to galactic civilization, despite the Council's previous assessment of our capabilities. You have demonstrated that economic integration can be more powerful than political authority," the High Speaker replied. "Every species on this council achieved membership through conquest, superior technology, or strategic alliance. You are the first to prove that commerce can reshape the balance of power more effectively than any of those traditional methods." Alex's expression remained neutral, but his eyes showed a hint of satisfaction. "The consortium is always interested in efficient solutions to complex problems. We look forward to working with any species that shares our commitment to mutual prosperity." As he left the chamber, Alex could hear urgent conversations breaking out among the remaining delegates. The humans had been denied a seat at the council table, but they had built something more valuable, a system where having a seat no longer mattered. 3 months after Alex Chen's first appearance at Nexus Prime, the galaxy looked completely different. Species that had once treated humans like ignorant children now competed desperately for favorable trade agreements. The proud unity of the Galactic Council had shattered into fragments as member worlds prioritized their economic survival over political loyalty. The breaking point came during what should have been a routine council session. The Altarian delegate, the same being who had called humans barely evolved primates just months earlier, stood before the assembly with his 4 arms trembling. The Altarian Federation formally requests immediate negotiations with the Terran Independent Trade Consortium, he announced, his voice barely above a whisper. A shocked silence filled the chamber. The Altarians had been among the most vocal opponents of human membership, leading the charge against Earth's applications year after year. Now their delegate was publicly begging for the very economic partnership he had once scorned. Within hours, 6 other species submitted similar requests. The floodgates had opened, and the careful political order that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was washing away in a tide of practical necessity. Ambassador Kate Morrison watched these developments from her office in the Human Embassy wing, officially uninvolved but secretly coordinating every move through encrypted communications with Alex and his team. She had spent months maintaining her diplomatic facade, while the consortium operated in the shadows of galactic commerce. Her personal communicator buzzed with an incoming message from the Zephyrian High Speaker himself. The crystalline being requested a private meeting, their first personal conversation since the humiliating rejection 9 months earlier. They met in the High Speaker's private chambers, a vast room where harmonic frequencies created an almost musical atmosphere. The alien's crystal form reflected light in complex patterns that seemed to shift with his emotional state. "Your species has accomplished something unprecedented," the High Speaker said, his translated voice carrying undertones of what might have been respect or fear. Kate settled into the chair he offered, her expression carefully neutral. "We've simply adapted to the circumstances we were given." The Council made it clear that humanity's political participation was unwelcome. The High Speaker moved to a viewing window that overlooked the station's central hub, where representatives from dozens of species conducted their daily business. "You do realize what you have done, don't you? In 9 months you have demonstrated that traditional political authority means nothing without economic foundation." "That wasn't our intention," Kate replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. "We simply wanted to contribute to galactic civilization in whatever way was possible." The High Speaker's form darkened as he considered her words. Every species currently seated on this council achieved membership through military conquest, technological superiority, or strategic political alliance. You are the first to demonstrate that economic integration can be more powerful than any of those traditional methods. Kate joined him at the viewing window, watching the bustling activity below. Aliens from dozens of worlds moved through the corridors, But now many of them wore small badges indicating their species' partnership status with the Terran Consortium. The symbols had become a new form of galactic currency, more valuable than Council membership itself. "The galaxy is changing whether we guide that change or not," Kate observed. Communication networks connect civilizations that never knew each other existed. Trade routes that once took months now span days. Traditional boundaries between species are becoming meaningless. "And you believe humanity should help direct that transformation?" Kate's response was carefully measured. "We believe humanity should participate in that transformation. Alex's trade consortium has already accomplished more practical cooperation between species than the Council has achieved in decades of political debate." She turned to face the High Speaker directly. "The question isn't whether we deserve a seat at your table anymore. The question is whether your table is still relevant to how the galaxy actually functions." The alien's crystalline form flickered with what his species showed when deeply disturbed. "You speak as if the Council has become obsolete." "Not obsolete," Kate corrected. "Just limited. The Council was designed for a galaxy where each species controlled its own destiny independently. But that galaxy doesn't exist anymore. Today's reality requires cooperation on a scale that traditional political structures can't handle." As if to prove her point, an urgent communication arrived for the High Speaker. The message reported that the hegemony of Ceres had formally announced their withdrawal from the Galactic Council to establish what they called a bilateral economic alliance with the Terran Trade Consortium. The High Speaker's form went completely dark for several seconds as he absorbed this information. "They are abandoning 2 centuries of political tradition for a trade agreement with a species we rejected as unworthy. They're abandoning a system that no longer serves their needs," Kate replied gently. The hegemony's military was falling behind because Council bureaucracy prevented them from accessing advanced technology. Now they have full technology transfer agreements, manufacturing partnerships, and defensive cooperation treaties. Their security has improved more in 3 months than in the previous 20 years. Another message arrived before the High Speaker could respond. This one reported that 4 additional species were following the hegemony's example, formally withdrawing from the Council to join what was being called the Economic Cooperation Treaty. Kate watched the alien leader process this devastating news with something approaching sympathy. "The consortium isn't trying to destroy the Council," she said softly. "We're trying to build something better." "Better?" The High Speaker's voice carried a note of desperate confusion. "A system where cooperation is based on mutual benefit rather than political maneuvering. Where species work together because it makes practical sense, not because they're forced to by ancient treaties and traditional hierarchies." Kate pulled out her personal datapad and showed him the latest statistics from the Economic Cooperation Treaty worlds. "Look at these numbers. Medical cooperation has reduced disease outbreaks by 60%. Agricultural technology sharing has eliminated famine on 14 worlds. Joint defense agreements have ended 3 separate conflicts before they could escalate." The High Speaker studied the data with growing amazement. "These results, how is this possible?" "It's possible because the treaty focuses on solving actual problems instead of maintaining political prestige," Kate explained. "When the Voltan Republic needed food, we provided it immediately instead of forming a committee to study the issue. When the Ceres hegemony needed better defenses, we shared our technology instead of debating whether they deserved access." The alien leader returned to the viewing window, his form now flickering between different colors as he struggled with the implications. "You have created an alternative to everything the Council represents." "We've created an evolution of what the Council represents," Kate corrected. The Council's original purpose was to prevent conflicts and promote cooperation between species. The Economic Cooperation Treaty accomplishes those same goals more effectively. A final message arrived, and this one made the High Speaker's crystal form go completely transparent with shock. The message reported that 12 more species had submitted formal applications to join the Economic Cooperation Treaty, including 3 current Council members. "The old system is ending," Kate said quietly. The only question is whether it ends gradually through voluntary transition or suddenly through complete collapse. The High Speaker turned away from the window, his form solidifying into something resembling resignation. What would transition look like? Kate had been hoping for this question. The Council could vote to dissolve itself and transfer its functions to the Economic Cooperation Treaty Organization. All current members would be welcome to join the new system with full partnership status. No one loses their voice, but everyone gains access to more effective cooperation mechanisms. And if we refuse? Kate's expression remained sympathetic, but her words carried the weight of inevitable reality. Then the Council becomes increasingly irrelevant, as more species choose economic partnership over political isolation. Eventually, you'll be governing an empty chamber, while the real business of galactic civilization happens elsewhere. The High Speaker stood silent for several minutes, processing everything she had told him. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the tone of someone accepting an unavoidable truth. "You understood something we failed to grasp," he admitted. "Authority derived from exclusion is ultimately self-defeating. True leadership comes from creating systems that benefit everyone, instead of systems that benefit only the chosen few." Kate nodded, feeling a mixture of victory and genuine sadness for what was ending. The treaty organization extends an invitation to all species committed to mutual prosperity and peaceful development. Membership requires no approval process, no evaluation of worthiness, no judgment of past mistakes. It requires only a commitment to cooperation and fair dealing. As she prepared to leave, Kate turned back to the alien leader one final time. Humanity was denied a seat at the Council table. So we built a better table where the vote took place on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. The same chamber where Kate Morrison had been humiliated a year earlier, now witnessed the end of an era that had lasted for centuries. The Zephyrian High Speaker's crystalline form had lost its usual brilliant shine. His voice, normally filled with commanding authority, sounded tired as he addressed the assembly for what everyone knew would be the last time. "The motion before the Council is simple," he announced. "Do we formally dissolve the Galactic Council and transfer our functions to the Economic Cooperation Treaty Organization?" Around the chamber, delegates from species that had once ruled the galaxy sat in uncomfortable silence. Many seats were already empty. 17 member species had withdrawn from the Council over the past month to join the treaty directly. The remaining delegates knew they were voting on the inevitable. Alex Chen sat in the observer section, no longer representing the Terran Independent Trade Consortium, but now serving as the elected coordinator of the Economic Cooperation Treaty. Beside him sat Ambassador Kate Morrison, whose official title had changed to Treaty Integration Specialist. They watched quietly as the political structure that had rejected humanity prepared to vote itself out of existence. The Altarian delegate was the first to speak. His forearms moved nervously as he addressed the chamber. The Altarian Federation recognizes that the current system no longer serves galactic civilization effectively. We vote in favor of dissolution and integration. One by one, the remaining council members cast their votes. Each species that had once dismissed humans as too primitive, too young, too dangerous now formally acknowledged that humanity had built something better than what they were protecting. The Kepler Commonwealth representative stood with visible reluctance. "The Commonwealth has benefited greatly from council membership, but we cannot ignore reality. We vote for dissolution." The vote was unanimous. Not a single species chose to maintain the old system when faced with the clear superiority of the alternative humanity had created. As the final votes were recorded, the High Speaker performed his last official act. By unanimous consent, the Galactic Council hereby dissolves itself effective immediately. All functions, responsibilities, and diplomatic protocols are transferred to the Economic Cooperation Treaty Organization. Alex stood and walked to the center of the chamber, the same spot where Kate had been rejected a year earlier. But now he spoke not as a supplicant seeking admission, but as the coordinator of a system that had proven its worth through results rather than rhetoric. The Economic Cooperation Treaty welcomes all former council members as full partners, he announced. No approval process is required. No evaluation of worthiness will be conducted. Membership requires only a commitment to the principles of mutual benefit and peaceful cooperation. He paused, looking around the chamber at beings who had once treated humans as barely evolved animals. The treaty organization's first act will be to establish joint task forces for addressing the galaxy's most pressing challenges. We have work to do. Within hours, the massive space station was buzzing with activity as the transition began. The old ceremonial chambers were converted into practical meeting rooms. The elaborate throne-like seats where council members had sat in judgment were replaced with simple conference tables where species could work as equals. Kate Morrison stood in what had once been the High Speaker's private office, now redesigned as the Treaty Coordination Center. Through the viewing window, she could see construction crews installing new symbols throughout the station. The old council emblem, a circle of stars representing member species arranged in a hierarchy, was being replaced with the treaty symbol, a simple sphere incorporating design elements from every participating species, with no hierarchy or special positions. Dr. James Parker, the treaty's science coordinator, approached with a data pad full of urgent requests. We have 17 different worlds asking for immediate assistance with various crises, he reported. Everything from disease outbreaks to natural disasters to technological failures. What did the council usually do in these situations? Kate asked. Form committees to study the issues, James replied. Sometimes they would reach decisions after months or years of debate. Kate nodded toward the communications center where treaty specialists were already coordinating response teams. Send aid ships to all 17 worlds. Emergency assistance first, detailed planning later. We can figure out the complicated stuff after we've saved lives. Alex joined them, carrying reports from the first day of treaty operations. The Voltan Republic is sharing their agricultural technology with 6 worlds facing food shortages. The series Hegemony is providing defensive support to 3 species dealing with pirate attacks. The Altarians are opening their medical facilities to refugees from the Outer Rim conflicts. All of this happened in one day? Kate asked with amazement. When you remove political barriers and focus on practical solutions, things move quickly, Alex replied. The treaty eliminates most of the bureaucracy that slowed down the council system. The real test of the new order came 2 weeks later when long-range sensors detected a massive natural disaster developing in the Vega system. A solar flare was building that would devastate 3 inhabited worlds unless immediate action was taken. Under the old council system, such a crisis would have required emergency sessions, committee meetings, and formal votes before any assistance could be authorized. The political process alone would have taken days that the threatened worlds didn't have. Under the treaty system, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Human evacuation ships launched within hours. Voltan Agricultural. Specialists began preparing emergency food supplies. Altarian medical teams prepared refugee centers. The series Hegemony provided defensive escorts for the rescue fleet. Kate stood in the coordination center, watching dozens of species work together with an efficiency that would have been impossible under the old system. Look at this, she said to Alex, pointing at the displays showing the rescue operation. 43 different species cooperating on a single mission, all coordinated in real time. No committees, no votes, no political calculations, Alex agreed. Just people helping people. The rescue operation saved over 2 million lives across 3 worlds. The success was reported throughout the galaxy as an example of what the new system could accomplish. Species that had been hesitant to abandon the familiar council structure saw the results and submitted their own applications to join the treaty. 3 months after the council's dissolution, the treaty organization included 97 different species. The old system of exclusive membership had been replaced by inclusive partnership that grew stronger with each new addition. Kate and Alex met one final time in the observation deck that overlooked the central hub of what was now called Unity Station rather than Nexus Prime. The corridors below bustled with activity as beings from across the galaxy worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Think we've changed enough for 1 year? Alex asked with a slight smile. Kate watched a group of young beings from a dozen different species working together on some kind of engineering project, their different biologies and perspectives combining to solve problems none of them could have handled alone. "We didn't change everything," she replied thoughtfully. "We just showed everyone that change was possible." Above them, the treaty symbol glowed softly in the station's main display. The simple sphere contained design elements from nearly 100 different species, all working together as equals. Humanity had been denied a seat at the council table, but they had built something infinitely better. They had built a table where everyone belonged.